Hi, this is Thomas Cook from Toronto's real estate team at RE/MAX Hallmark, and welcome to Part 4 of our Status of Downtown Toronto's Condo Market Analysis. In Part 3, we looked at the cost of new condo suites on a per square foot basis in the various downtown neighborhoods, and where much of the new development is being built. In this final part of the series, let's look at what's driving that new construction, what warning signs there are in the marketplace, and what we can predict for the future of our downtown Toronto condo market. One of the main drivers in the Treb District CO8 east of Yonge is social housing and rejuvenation of neighborhoods. A prime example of that is Regent Park east of Parliament. The existing housing stock is being torn down block by block and replaced with brand new buildings, which are a blend of condos and subsidized housing, interspersed with new roads, parks, and community centers. Daniels Corporation is the prime builder, and, contrary to custom, has completed the buildings before putting them on the market for sale. So far, every building has sold out in a very short time. In the GTA outside of the downtown core, with some exceptions, development has not occurred where there is easy access to public transit, but has relied instead on quick access to our highway system. This, of course, will cause serious problems in the future, as residents have to rely on those major routes to get to and from work. So what's the solution? Getting transit people and community planners to speak the same language, and to realize that synergies are needed between them to improve public transit connectivity with where people actually live. Part of the problem is existing communities residing around transit hubs often resist higher densities. A perfect example is the Minto condos at the southeast corner of Yonge and Eglinton. There was heavy community resistance to those buildings, but it makes perfect sense to build in that type of location. Put intensification in places where public transit can take over the load of moving residents to and from work and play. Some communities in the GTA are working hard to create suburban downtowns where residents can live and work in the same locale. Some good examples of this would be in downtown Mississauga, North Oakville, and other centers around Toronto. These will be successful if municipalities can guide and cajole public transit into making these new downtowns into transit hubs as well. And finally, we're seeing some interesting architecture. The most striking example on the Mississauga skyline is the Marilyn Monroe Absolute Condo Towers on Highway 10. Their sinuous curves are just tremendous. Downtown, we've got the upcoming condos at the Studio on Richmond, the L Tower at Yonge and the Esplanade, and One Bloor, just to name a few. While it's great to see interesting buildings, I hope that architects keep in mind the needs of residents when they design condo interiors. I've seen lots of examples where no thought at all was given to how the suite was laid out. If indeed there's trouble brewing on the condo horizon, there must be some warning signs appearing, right? After 31 years in real estate and living through 3 or 4 downturns, what I'm seeing now is unprecedented since the late 1980s. First, the price per square foot of new buildings in all but 3 downtown neighborhoods is over $500 per square foot, and in several is closer to $600. This will diminish the buyer pool for those units. In an ideal, stable real estate market, we would have 65 to 75% of the owners being residents in the building, and the rest of the suites investor-owned. And that's what we've had for the past 15 years. Only in the last 2 years has that ratio begun to change, and now the pendulum has swung completely the opposite way. Current builder statistics show that about 75% of buyers of new condos are now investors. Builders have begun catering to this class of buyer because the owner-occupant class is disappearing. There are 2 major signs of builder desperation. The first is providing lots of realtor incentives for them to bring in condo purchasers, the vast majority of them from outside Canada. There's plenty of offshore money, predominantly Asian, seeking a safe place to go. The second sign is the virtual elimination of restrictions on buyers assigning their offers to another buyer sometime along the building completion timeline. If buyer number 1 thinks they can sell their offer to buyer number 2 and make a profit, they can now do it any time. It was this type of activity that sealed the fate of many real estate markets in the US, including Miami and Las Vegas. There always seemed to be another buyer to purchase that offer, until suddenly there wasn't. The silly part of this is we're not in a frothy market like Miami had. I think those investor buyers are being sucked in with this sell your offer anytime promise, because I don't think there are many future gambler buyers for those offers. Most normal owner-occupant buyers have 5, 10, or 15% down payment saved for a purchase, so they're also eliminated from the buyer pool for these condos. Why? Well, because buyer number one typically wants all his cash invested with the builder plus his profit back in his hands, usually about 30 to 40% of the purchase price. Since mortgage financing can't be placed on the condo until registration, there's no way a normal buyer can come up with the cash needed for the purchase. Okay, so we've talked about the warning signs. What's positive about the long-term view of the downtown condo market? The best thing is that more and more people are adopting and liking the downtown condominium lifestyle. We're seeing people move up from one size of condo to the next when they've outgrown the first suite. The exception so far seems to be when a couple decides to have a family, or when their one child starts approaching 3 to 5 years old. The major choice then seems to be to move up to a house as opposed to remaining in a condo lifestyle. Also, more singles are in the market now than probably ever were before. Somewhere between 40 to 50% of first-time buyers are singles, and they absolutely enjoy the street activities and access to TTC in downtown Toronto. With recent studies showing that even a 5-minute walk outside can relieve stress and boost your mood, builders are now starting to cater to the long-term occupant by providing more green space on rooftop gardens and terraces. One builder recently stated, "There's no trick to this, people want to be outside. Condos are getting smaller for the sake of affordability, so it's critical that we offer useful and appealing outdoor spaces." And finally, the rental vacancy rate for condominiums has dropped to 1.6%. Why would anyone want to move into an old walk-up rental apartment when they can live in an almost new building that has a concierge service, gym, and other amenities all included? At the recent Barry Lyon consultant seminar that I attended, Barry stated that initially he was opposed to builders targeting a large investor pool of buyers. Back in 1989, investors dominated the market, and when the economy went south in 1990, many of them bailed and sold their units, depressing the market. His rationalization to make it seem better this time was to say that investors were really doing first-time buyers a favor. With builders requiring staged payments of up to 20% of the purchase price before occupancy, many first-time buyers cannot afford to purchase new construction. Once condos were registered and a mortgage could be placed on the unit, these investor units could be available to first-time buyers who could then get financing to whatever amount they needed. All of that is true, but only time will tell if this option will be beneficial to the market as a whole or not. The other rationalization has been put forth by Brad Lamb, one of the major condo developers in the city right now. His belief is that today's investors are classy people who will rent out their suites on a long-term basis and use this as an investment strategy to build wealth for retirement. Again, the concept is excellent. Condos do make one of the simplest investment vehicles because the landlord really only has to take care of the interior of the suite and doesn't have to worry about maintaining roofs, windows, landscaping, etc. So, what can we conclude? Well, I think we have to look at the market from two perspectives when drawing a conclusion from what we've seen. First, let's look at it from an investor perspective. I believe that the new construction condo market has blown past where it should be and is due for a correction. When 70+% of buyers are investors and they're being offered the ability to sign their offer immediately and at very little cost, it's time for normal buyers to run for the hills. When those new buildings are finally completed and registered in 1 to 4 years from now, I think investors will be lucky to sell for what they paid and will probably take a loss. Accidentally, this might cause more of those owners to become ideal long-term investors and rent their suites out in an attempt to come out ahead. Now, let's look at it from the resale market and owner-occupant perspective. In many neighborhoods downtown, the price per square foot for a resale unit is often over $100 less than the equivalent suite being sold brand new by a builder. The resale market so far has been very stable and, despite inventory increases west of Yonge, has continued to hold its own and match or just slightly underperform the overall market for appreciation levels. I think this will continue. Why? Well, if the resale market in one neighborhood is say $400 per square foot, and brand new construction when completed has cost $500 per square foot or more, a resale unit still looks pretty good. What I think will happen, though, is that these new condos will take a hit of 10 to 15% off their prices to bring them more into line with the overall resale market. If we assume the per square foot difference is $100 and new construction is at, say, $500 per square foot, then it would take a 20% hit on new construction prices before they got down to the resale market level. So, who's right? Is it the developers who are bullish on the market, or the naysayers at Capital Economics who predict a 25% drop in prices over the next few years, or is it somewhere in between? Barring any unforeseen economic circumstances, I'd bet on my prediction. It's probably got a better basis in reality than some of the others. I hope you've enjoyed our Status of the Downtown Toronto Condo Market series, Summer of 2011 edition, and please consider us as your Downtown Toronto condo consultants.